The Waterfront Arts Project was funded in July 2010 by artist and art history lecturer Tony Wynn, assisted by photographer Nick Hill, fine art student Brown, technician Steve Wright and chord artist Laura Clancy. The large industrial-style space became available by kind consent of the owners. Neptune Developments. It opened officially on 15 August 2010 with an exhibition of classic film posters. Within 4 weeks the Waterfront team had grown rapidly, with artists, photographers and sculptors joining and forming the core team that still exists today. The project had, and still has, a simple ethos: to provide a fine art space open to all people, artists and creative individuals, and to all sectors of the public. Visitors are always warmly welcomed, and the team feel that warm welcome has worked. Nearly 40,000 people have visited the project since August 2010. Many of those had never entered a fine art space before. In 2012 the Waterfront intends to build on its success and continue in its mission to promote and support artists and to drive forward Southport's potential as a center for artistic and cultural excellence.
Tell us what you want to say with your art.
I like my art to be ideas based. I'm mainly an installation artist, so I like it to have many layers of meaning. It takes a bit of lateral thinking to understand some of my pieces of work. So alongside them I usually have a selection of quotes that underpin the work and try to explain what, the meaning I'm trying to put across.
Yeah. Can you tell us how about your investigation of light and your art?
Well, it's really started because I feel that a lot of people think that the material world is all that exists. So I wanted to show them that there are things that are unseen that I believe exist, and so that's why I investigated light. And on most of my work is a kind of an illusion as well.
Everything I've made comes from inside it, a very strong feeling that I need to make that piece of work. And that's my motivation. I have to be infected by the subject.
Right. I would say that the ones in the Spice of Life are based on a kind of neo-psychedelia, and with probably some elements of surrealism, but not in the traditional sense of the word.
Tell me about how you produce the painting.
It involves a very large straw, a 2-foot straw, which I sucked the paint up and then blew it back out onto the canvas.
And what does the painting tell us?
The painting is to do with the way food reacts with the body and what benefits and unbenefits we get from it.
Yeah, it's basically from nature programs, and it was the migration patterns of the giant spider crab. And each year they go to the same spot in South Australia and shed the shells because it builds up and builds up, and they have to escape them, and otherwise they'll be entombed. And it's kind of just like a graveyard, but with no death. But I kind of like the idea of thinking about how advertising bombards constantly, and the power of the high street store through advertising, and then eventually the litter that's left behind from it. And that was kind of what I was going with this. The installation and then the animation as well.
Basically, things come into my mind about the sort of poverty or depression, and what you read in the papers about the wars and other sort of things. I'm always seem to be on the lookout for some unknown reason for this sort of rather depressing themes, which I don't know whether this is due to the fact that my husband's disabled and he's getting more and more sort of fragile as the years go on, and whether this is reflected in my work. I'm not sure about that one, but all my work seems to be based on some form of figures that are under some sort of stress or depression or lack of food.
Brilliant. And maybe tell us a little bit about the work, the method you use. Yeah.
Right. It's quite a complicated method, but I mean, I've done so much now that it comes to me quite easily. Basically, it's any used cotton cloth that's quite soft, and this is dipped into PVA glue and then into plaster, and then you're landed with this big soggy mess of cloth, which you then put onto either a canvas or a board, lay it on the floor and manoeuvre it until you're happy with the shapes. The only problem with it really is the fact that I can't see it up until it dries, so I'm never very sure what I'm going to end up with.
Excellent.
Which is often a surprise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, all right.
My subject's been photography.
Or the way you go about.
Basically, the stuff I actually like to look at myself, something interesting, nature.
Your pictures sort of show
aspects of
basically
anything that I like to look at. I think other people would like to look at. That is what I try and do.
Tell us why you like painting.
It's in my blood.
Painting.
It's in my blood.
Painting is it?
Painting is in my blood.
I do it.
I do it like I breathe. It's a passion, becomes a drug. I've painted for 40 years all over. My paintings are of various moments in my life. Musicians, artists, dancers, people and places. I've travelled a lot.
Waterscapes and town and urbanscapes, but I also create abstract work. Now, the abstract work that I create is exactly the same subject matter, just represented in a more contemporary form.
My artwork is somewhat eclectic. I haven't quite decided what kind of artist I am. I'm still trying to find my path. And I think it's the journey rather than the ultimate destination that I'm interested in.
best describe your work, really?
I take photographs. I'm a photographer, and my work is photographs mainly taken on my travels around the world.
That's brilliant. Yeah, and it takes you far.
Yes, they're fairly far flung. I've got photographs from the Far East, Borneo, Malaysia, America, Tanzania, you name it.
And it's all film photography.
No,
Or is it digital?
digital.